Hi, and welcome to our February at the Cross standing sign tutorial. And my name is Melanie with Christian Craft Paper, and I'm going to be taking you through creating this month's project. So I've kind of got everything spread out here that is in your kit, but some other things that you are going to need. Let's start with paint. I'm going to be using Plaster by Waverly, and I'm also going to be using Cafe Noir by Hello Hobby. This is a dark brown. And I've used that before, and so if you've seen any of my other tutorials, it's that same one. I do need to get a bigger one because this is a little guy, but that's what we have left today. I'm going to be showing a few techniques. We're going to do a crackle on the larger cross. We're going to do like a texturing technique on the smaller cross, or the middle cross. We're going to be decoupaging on the smallest cross. So you're going to get a little bit of everything today. In addition to those items, what you're going to need is we're going to need our school glue for the crackle. It doesn't have to be Elmer's. It does need to be white liquid glue. You're going to need your Mod Podge as well for the decoupage. I also have my antique wax in brown. This is the Dixie Belle Best Dang Wax in brown, as well as your antique applicator tool. I do have a dry brush here for one of the techniques that we'll be using, as well as you'll need your E6000. I've got just a little card I like to put paint on and stuff. Hot glue gun, the battery's charging, so we'll grab that later. I do have my iron. We'll be doing the iron-on method for decoupage. And heat gun, brushes, water, scissors, and you should be good to go. So I'm going to be using the napkin I'm going to be using for decoupage is the hymnal in this month's kit, and I have the transfers right here. I'll be using a couple of those. You might need some wire cutters to cut your floral as well, so I'll just add that on there. But I think we're ready to get started. I'm going to go ahead and do the background paint on the crackle for the largest piece. And just as you're planning your projects, we do want to make sure that anything that we're going to be putting the transfers on, we're going to want to have the most time to dry. So as I'm saying that, I am realizing I'm going to be putting transfers on this one. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this one. This is the one we're going to be doing some texturing on, and we're going to paint it white first, and then I'm going to be doing the texture on it as well. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this little guy, and I'm going to come in with the plaster, and we're going to go ahead and just give it one nice coat on the top. And if you have not worked with our wood cutouts before, kind of just an easy technique is as you get to the edges, you want to just drag the paint to the edges, and that will help so that you're not getting paint on the outside of the actual cutout. And sometimes, you know, you can still get it on there, but it does help a little bit to keep it to a minimum. If you do get some on the outside, I just keep a wet rag kind of handy, and then I can go in and I can wipe that off. All right, so we've got this one good coat on it. Now we are going to be decoupaging the small one, or I'm going to be decoupaging the small one. I just saw a little bit of white. I've got my rag wet here. And I'm just going to catch, like I mentioned, if you see anywhere where you got it just a little bit, if we can catch it when it's still wet, we can just go in here and we can wipe it back off. So just had those couple little spots where I had a little overbrush, so we'll just go ahead and clean those off before it dries. So we're going to be decoupaging the smallest one. So I'm going to go ahead and paint it white first. The reason we want to do that is because the white is really going to help the design on the napkin pop, because we're only going to be using one ply of the napkin. So we'll just give this a nice quick coat to help that design pop. and then we'll let this one dry as well. Okay, perfect. We've got both of those ready to dry, so we're going to put them aside. And now we can work on the coats for the Crackle. So I'm going to be going back and forth here. We are going to be using the white again, so I'm going to leave that there. However, I do need to use the brown, and so I am going to rinse off one of my other brushes here, and we will use this for the Crackle. Now, whenever you do Crackle, we want to do the darker color on the background and the lighter color on the foreground. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to use white and brown like I am. You could use any color that you want. Just you'll need two colors, and you'll need one for the background with the darker color and the lighter color for the foreground. So we're going to come in here with this Cafe Noir, and we're going to do, it's going to be a tight fit with that brush. This is why I like to have the extra little cards. Now this is the card that comes in the transfers, and if your glue is a little bit sticky like mine and a little bit dry, this is one of the reasons I like to keep popsicle sticks near. We can come in and we can scoop some of this out. It is really thick. I definitely think it's time for me to get a different brown, a new brown. But we can just scoop it out like that, and we can use this card to put it on there and make a mess. It's okay. Not panicking. To put it on there, and we can pull up our paint from there. So we'll just give this one nice messy coat. Again, this doesn't need to be perfect either because we're going to be applying another color over it. And you can actually do multiple colors as well. We've done that before where we have done like a black and a brown and then a teal and a yellow. Kind of gives it like a vintage wood look, like old crackly paint, something that's been painted multiple times. We're not going to be doing that today, but it is an option. All right, we've got one decent coat on there. Again, it doesn't need to be perfect because we're going to cover it with the glue and the white. But for right now, I'm just going to go through and again, get my edges anywhere where I went really over with the brown and just clean it up a little bit. And then we're going to let it dry before we do our next coat. And I will tell you, I think it would have been easier to paint with melted chocolate because that's about the consistency of that paint. So I'll probably be throwing this one away after this tutorial because it was a little thicker than I like to work with. But we'll put that down. Let me put my brush in the water and then we'll get this out of the way. Now, one thing to be mindful of if you're switching colors like we are is just being careful that anywhere we get that dark color, if I've got it on the mat here, just cleaning that up because we're going to be switching back and forth between the white and the dark. And I don't want to get the dark on any of my white. It does get a little bit difficult to cover up. So I'm going to go ahead and put this guy to the side. And while we are letting that dry, we're going to come in and do our antiquing on a couple of the other pieces. So the pieces that I'm going to be antiquing today are the layer that has the thorns in it. And then I'm also going to be antiquing the base as well. So we're going to get our antique wax, and we are saving this brown here. I have it pushed up here, but we are going to be using that for the dry brushing. So I'm going to leave, we're not throwing it away. So we're going to leave that out. But first we're going to go ahead and do the antiquing. Now again, for the same reason I just mentioned about the paint, we are going to want to have our antiquing on something so that we don't have the antiquing going everywhere. The wax does like to stick a little bit and kind of travel. So we just want to make sure our surface is protected so that we're not getting it everywhere. Also, check your hands. We're okay now because we're going to do the wax. But before we start handling the white, we are going to want to make sure everything's clean. So I'm going to come in here. I just dabbed in my wax a little bit, and then I'm just going to come in here and I'm just going to drag over it. And the wax is buildable. So if you want it darker, you can always come in and do another layer or grab some more wax. We do want to make sure as we're antiquing this, go with the cuts. We don't want to go pull one of these thorns and snap the whole piece. So just kind of make sure you're going with the direction that the design is flowing, and then just kind of scrape a little bit to get those thorns. But we don't want to like catch a thorn and snap it. So I'll just keep antiquing this, and then we're going to do the same thing to the base next. Okay, so what we're looking for here is nice, even color. I'm going to put it on my shirt so you can see. And this piece looks great. So we're going to go ahead and put this aside, and we will switch and do the same thing to the base. Perfect. So we have both pieces waxed. Now before we walk away from these, what we want to do is take our rag, and we just want to get just a clear spot of your rag, and we want to go over, and I've had the rag cut my nails in here a little bit, or you can take your transfer tool or a pair of scissors, and I just want to go through these grooves. Make sure that we get all the wax out of the grooves, because we don't want that to transfer to our design once we're getting ready to slide it in there. And then we're also going to go around each side and just take off any of the extra wax, because sometimes it does get a little chunky or clumpy, and we don't want any of that getting on our fingers later or transferring over to our other designs. So we just want to kind of get any of the excess off. So we did that to the base, and we're going to turn around and we're going to do it to the cross as well. Again, we need to be a little bit more careful. We don't want to snap any of the edging here. And we also don't want to break any of the delicate outline, like this side here. We don't want to snap that. So it's more of like a little dab, but we'll just kind of go through here and just dab a little bit. We're just doing little drags to make sure that we don't have any clumps of wax. We can also kind of go around the outside of it. Just make sure we don't have any chunks. And we should be good to go. So I'm going to put these two pieces to the side, and we are going to go ahead and I'm going to hit this with a little of the heat gun so we can get, looks like I have some spots that need a little bit help drying. Probably a little bit due to that thick paint. It just took a little bit longer. So I just saw that sitting there. So I'm going to put it aside again for a moment. And next we are going to go ahead and do our dry brushing. Now, if you're a little bit nervous about the dry brushing, what you can do is take a scrap piece of paper. You can see I've used this multiple times for multiple things. I don't throw it away till I have to. And you're going to take your dry brush, and we're just going to dip it in. You can tell I do not wash this because we use so little paint. I'm just going to dip it in there a little bit. I'm going to take the excess off on my sheet, and then I'm going to take it from one direction to the end, and I'm just going to drag it, okay? Same thing. And then if we want a little bit more, we can come from this side next, and we'll get this. Now this is a very subtle technique. We're not looking for a ton of paint. We're just looking for a little bit of texture. I'm going to stop it there. So you can see we've got just a little bit of texture. We're not trying to paint it. We're just trying to give it a little bit of personality. And then I will just dab off the rest of my paint off of my brush just to get the rest off. And then this just goes back in my little spinner here, and that will dry on there. And I find it gets more texture each time you use it because you've kind of got the little clumps on there. Might not be for everybody, but that's how I like to do it. So with that, this one is done. We're gonna do the transfer on it next, but I'm gonna let the dry brushing dry. And I think we're ready to come in here with our glue. And I'm going to need to clean off my brush here to use, I should have grabbed an extra large brush and I didn't think about it, but that's okay. We're gonna go ahead and just use this one. I'm gonna just get the brown off of it. And the next step we're going to do is our glue. So the glue we want to put on a little bit thick. And I actually see one more spot here that is still a little bit wet. So let me go ahead and hit that. All right, so we're ready to go ahead and put our school glue. Now I'm gonna get another little plastic they buried. I'm gonna get another little plastic thing so I can dump the glue on there. I like to have some control over where the glue is going, so I generally like to put it on some type of container. You could use a paper plate too if you don't have one of these. I know it looks like it's going to go off, but I think we're going to use it fast enough. We're going to be okay. All right, so we need to have a pretty, scooch this over so you can see, generous amount of glue. And we're going to go in here and we're going to start putting this glue on here. Now, the thicker, where the glue is thicker, is where you're going to get a bigger crackle. So we have to work kind of quickly on this. And I use the 5-minute method. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this glue on, and then once I am done painting the glue, I'm going to set my timer for 5 minutes. The key to the glue is not to keep overworking. We're basically getting it on here and dragging it a little bit, but we're leaving it kind of clumpy. And once we have it up here, like I'm not going to go over here, you know, and try and rework that. We don't want to do that. We're just going to keep moving down the piece till we get to the bottom. And then we are going to set our timer. This is going to allow the glue to get tacky. And it's not as important for this part of it that we don't overwork it. When we apply the paint is when we have to not overwork it. Okay, I feel like I have a good layer here, and you're probably going to see like it's already going to be drying in some places. So we're going to set our timer on our phone and put it aside. And at this part, we can start working on the decoupage piece. So that is this one here. I'm going to turn my iron on. We can close our glue. And if you use the tools that come inside the transfer, you can actually let this glue dry and then take your transfer tool and just peel it off. And then you can reuse that card again. Okay, so we are ready for decoupage. First thing we're going to do is put our Mod Podge on here. So again, I'm going to grab another little card. I tell you, I save all these for this exact reason. Same thing with the Mod Podge. You can just let it dry and it will peel right off. So with the Mod Podge, we're going to do one light coat of Mod Podge. We are doing the dry iron-on method. You can do the wet method as well. I just find the iron-on method makes it the easiest to get the design nice and flat, especially when we're using anything that has words on it. And I'm going to be using the hymnal, so I want to be able to read those words once I get the hymnal on there. So I'm going to use the dry method. Make sure you get all the way to the edges because we don't want our edges lifting of the napkin. All right, perfect. So we're gonna let that dry, and we're going to go ahead and cut out our napkin next. So when working with the napkins, our napkins are 3-ply, but we're only able to print on the front because we have our napkins printed right here in the United States, out of Tennessee. And so we're only able to print the front at this time. And we enjoy supporting other local small businesses, and so that's why we choose to use them and just print the front. So we're going to cut out, we don't need this, but we can save that for another project. We are going to need this one. Now before I Mod Podged it, I should have done some measuring, but what I'm going to do is try and figure out where I need to be. Now I am not able to fit the whole Saved by the Blood there, and so I am actually not going to use it. I'm going to drop it down, and it's going to be, I'm going to have this blank spot down here, but that's okay because I'm going to show you how to cover it up with a transfer. So the next thing that we need to do is go ahead and separate the plies. And I generally always say sometimes this is the hardest part. I may have got lucky on this one. I think I did because it was already kind of separating. Now you're going to just gently separate. This is what we would call a full color design, meaning there's ink all over the whole napkin. So when it's like that, you just want to make sure to be careful. And if one side gets sticky, just go to another side and start going that way and work it around a different direction. We just don't want to tear that main design because that's what we're going to be using. All right. Again, you could save this for something else. And we're going to go ahead and we're ready to put this on here. I'm going to hit it with the heat gun just a moment because I do see the Mod Podge is a little bit wet. And we just want it dry so that we can move it around. Because once it's dry, then we can move this, keep moving it until we get it centered. And that's what we want to be able to have the ability to do. So I like to line the project up with my Surface Saver mat. And this is going to allow me to make sure that I get everything not only centered, but that I get it straight. So I'm going to lift it up so that I don't have the title of the hymnal on here. And then I know I have a blank spot at the bottom. I'm not worried about that. Then I just want to make sure that I have everything straight. So again, I can use the lines on my Surface Saver to, I have a little bit of Mod Podge on my finger, it's sticking to the napkin, to line up with the bottom. I can use the bottom line of the design with the lines of my Surface Saver to make sure that I have it centered and straight. So once we have that, we get this out of the way so that it doesn't mess with my iron. We're going to hold it with one hand and we are going to put our parchment paper over it with the other hand and just kind of switch so we know that it's nice and flat. And then we're going to take our iron and we'll come over here and we will just iron it on. This is going to melt the Mod Podge and the design will just go ahead and stick in there for us. And perfect timing. That is our alarm. So we're going to just let this sit and we'll come back to it because right now we've got to go ahead and we need to apply our white. So we'll go ahead and take the white, and again, you want to be kind of generous with the paint. So get yourself a chunk and we're just going to work from the top down, and we have to be, ooh, my paintbrush is a little dry. So it drug it. That paintbrush is not going to work. Okay, don't let your paintbrush sit out because that doesn't work. I always like to make the mistakes so that you don't have to. All right, don't have a dry paintbrush. I thought we were going to be moving fast enough that I would be able to use that paintbrush. I was not moving fast enough. It wasn't me. It was I was not moving fast enough. So we're just going to again take it and we're just going to drag it. So I'm almost painting on top of the glue. I'm not trying to mix the paint with the glue, if that makes any sense. So we'll just keep working. Just kind of gotta work quickly because we don't want the glue to all the way dry. And if you want to use transfers on anything that you have done Crackle on, you really have got to let it sit. Like ideally, and I know it's not fun when you're crafting, ideally I would let it sit overnight so that you don't have any issues, because you are now needing the paint to dry and the glue to dry, and it's a lot to ask in a short time frame, and the transfer will not stick if both are not 100% cured. So just a little note if you do want to put a transfer on this one. All right, I have a little bit of draggy spots here. We're just gonna have to let it be. Again, you can kind of dab if you want more to some of the edges or more covered, but this is pretty much where I would let it be. And I'm gonna hit it with the heat gun just to kind of show you the crackle. And after that, I'm gonna not touch it. So we'll come in here with the heat gun. Now you can see the crackling already happening. One thing I do want to preface, you have to keep moving the heat gun around. I've made the mistake of holding the heat gun in one spot and it does a warpy thing to your paint, and that's not what we want. We want crackle, not warping. So make sure you keep moving. Okay, we've got some really great crackle going on it. It still needs to dry more. You may see some like little bubbly areas that almost look like a pocket, like a wet pocket. Don't make the mistake of touching them. I know you want to. I've done it before. We don't want to, we want it to dry exactly like it's going to dry, because those crackles are just going to come out more once it completely dries. But here is what we have so far. Here, if I show it in the light, you can see like over here I've got a bubble. Up here I've got kind of a bubble. I'm not going to touch those. I'm going to hit it with the heat gun again, like when we're getting a little bit closer to putting everything together. But for right now, I'm just going to let it set more and go ahead and keep continuing to cure, because I don't want to mess up that beautiful crackle. So don't touch it. Don't touch it. All right, we're going to come back to our decoupage. We are going to need our sandy block, which I forgot to mention for you to grab. So you can use sandpaper, you can use a fingernail file, you can use this as a finger sander. It is linked on my Amazon favorite things. But what I like to do, anything that has corners like this, if you're worried about getting into the corner, we're just going to take some scissors and we're just going to clip into that corner so that it kind of gives way and we can get it, it doesn't like break because the sander can't get in there. So we're just going to drag from the front to the back, and as we do that, it's just going to break off. So don't lift up. We're only sanding one way. So it's just down and then lift up and then down. And we're going to do that all the way around it. All right, so now we have our fully decoupaged small cross. Now, definitely want to make sure that we're going to switch to transfers. We want to make sure that we have all the dust and everything out of the way, because anything like that can cause the Mod Podge, or can cause the transfer not to stick. Now, I did toss those sections of the napkin. I'm going to be using a transfer at the bottom. However, if you wanted to keep the hymnal going, you could cut out some of these flowers and you could actually just kind of decoupage overlay them right over the bottom. So that is an option as well. So for this one, I'm actually going to be using this transfer on the medium-sized cross. And so I want something that's going to kind of go with that. And I thought bringing in these purple flowers would be really pretty. So those are kind of what I'm looking to do. Before I do that, I need to get an idea of where the bottom is going to be. So we're going to go ahead and put this on here. This part right here is what is going to slide into our base. So we don't need anything that goes down that far. I am noticing right here, this is lifting. So if that happens to you, just go ahead and come in here with the iron and get it down again, because we're going to be sliding this in and out of the base. I don't want that peeling up. So we just hit it again and we're good to go. So let me put that topper back on. And what we can do is take a pencil and we can figure out where the bottom is. And I'm just going to make a little pencil mark right there. And so that's where I know that I need to keep the bottom of this design above that. So from there, we can go ahead and we can cut it out. Now with the transfers, you just rough cut whichever design that you want to use. So I'm going to kind of wiggle in here and I'm going to get this one right out of the middle. And we just rough cut it because only where there is ink, that's the only thing that's going to transfer. So all this extra white space is just going to be clear. So there we go. I've cut out my design that I want to use, and we're going to need our transfer tool. So I would take the transfer tool and we're going to go ahead and peel the back off. So you just want to make sure this is a protective backing. We don't need that. We want to make sure we don't touch anything here because that's the part that's going to stick to our design. So we'll go ahead and flip it back over and we're going to line up the bottom with our line that we made there, because that's just going to basically, we are just kind of camouflaging the fact that this napkin didn't go all the way to the bottom. Now this transfer is hanging over just a teeny bit on each side. I don't know if you can see, there's just a little bit here. I'll show you this way. There's a little bit on each side. So I'm going to show you how we're going to deal with that. But first we're just going to make sure that this is down all the way. And then we're going to use our transfer tool to go ahead and start separating it. And we're going to rub and pull at the same time. Now, it should automatically release when it's ready to come off. We don't want to force it. If it's not coming off, then we need to rub some more. So now we have like our two little flaps, right, that we're hanging out, our two little edges of the flower. We're just going to take our sanding block, same way we did the paper, and we're just going to lightly sand those two little pieces off. You could also wrap them around, but we're just going to sand them off, and there we go. So now we have our little camouflage. So with this, we are ready to go ahead and put our topper on. So once we have the topper on, it's going to look something like that. So let's go ahead and glue this on because we are giving both of those other pieces as much time as possible to dry. So we're going to flip this over. We are using our E6000 multi-purpose glue. And I want to concentrate the glue on the spots that have the most wood. So I'm going to, concentrate on these areas. And then for the corners, I'm just going to dab the smallest amount that I can on the corner areas. So we'll go ahead and just get some of this on here. Again, this is, haven't used this in a minute. We got to get it going. Dab some on there. I don't want too much because I don't want it coming out in between of the design. But I will show you how you can get the little strings with your transfer tool once we get to that point. So for these ones, again, I'm just going to do like the tiniest little dabs in these corners because I want to make sure that all the little edges stick. Now, one of the great things about the E6000 is this isn't going to dry on us right away. It's going to give us that opportunity to move it around, to get any little strings. All right, I think we have a decent amount on it. So we'll go ahead and close that up. And then before I put it on, I want to kind of hold it up to the light. And I want to get any of these little strings because once it's down on the napkin, we are not going to be able to get in there as well to get them. And they're not like hot glue strings. They are thicker. And so they're a little bit easier to kind of snag. They almost look like little hairs. So we'll just get all these before we put it down. Okay, I think we got them. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to put it right on our base. So before I give it a good press, I'm going to hold it upside down because I know the top is going to match exactly. So I want to make sure both of those, that part's matched up. Then I'm going to go in and I'm going to give it a good push anywhere where I have that glue. Now I can see right here the glue has squished out a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just wipe that off. There was like a little bubble of glue that came out, not a big deal. We just use our transfer tool and wipe it off. If you have any that's doing that on the inside, same thing. You could come in here with your transfer tool, and I don't want this to move because I have it down, but you can come in here. We don't want to go too deep because I don't want to cut through the napkin, but you can come in and scrape off any little bubbles, and that will help you as well. And then I also, if I see it like kind of shiny, then I know glue's poking up, so I can just come in and I can just push it down so it's not as obvious. And there we go. I think we are on and we are good. So we're going to go ahead and put that piece to the side and let it dry. And then I'm going to come in and now we are ready to do this one, which we were going to put a larger transfer on. So there's a bunch of transfers on the set that will fit in this one. This is another good one that will fit as well. But I really liked this Redeemed as like the main, because this one I kind of did as a background one. This one I did with the message, and then we have this one going on with the hymn and everything. So I thought this would be a good mix. But again, you can do it any way that feels right to you. And that's why we provide so many transfers. It's so that you can have the look and the verses and the style that you love. So we're going to come in and just rough cut our big design here. Now this is going to have the same little hiccup that the other one did. There's like one little part that's going to that's going to hang off. We're going to sand it off. Also, just a tip, if you want to figure out if it's going to fit or not, you can just put it up here to the light and you can see whether or not the design is going to fit from the back. So for example, this one fits as well. So that's kind of a way to see before you cut it out if this is going to work or not. All right, so we're going to line everything up, and then I know that everything is going to fit except the top of this petal and a little bit of the cross here. So I have to keep it a little bit higher on this side to get the bottom of the R. I've got glue, I've got a little glue on my fingers. It's trying to catch stuff on me here. I'm going to move this. Okay, so we are ready. We're going to peel off the back just like we did on the other ones. And I was just thinking I could show you another little hack here too. Let's see how much is going to hang off here. Another thing that we can do, we can come in here and we can just cut off this little cross. And I'm going to cut it right where it attaches to the rock, because I still want it, but it's not going to fit on the thing. So there you go. I just cut off just this little cross, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and remove our backing. Make sure that we're not touching anything. Now we do have to be careful when we put this on, because once we put it down, like that is where it's going to stay. So we got to make sure that we get it as even as we can and as centered as we can before we push it down. And this one's a little tricky because the R has that part that goes underneath this part, and we want to keep this straight. So we're going to get our transfer tool and we're going to go ahead and work this on. So see, I'm using a little bit of the tulip there, and this is where that other cross would have hung off. So I'm going to show you how we can fix that. And you can do this with all of the designs, all of the transfers. You can mix, match, and layer, kind of just like we did over the decoupage. All right, once we get it good, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to come here and rub, and the design is going to release when it's ready. Again, we're just going to sand off this part that went over the edge. And now what we can do is we can come in, and I've got it, I had cut it at an angle, so I'm going to actually cut it at straight, because where I'm going to put it is at the top of this rock. So I can come in and I can move that one just a little bit closer and still attach it to the rock, so that it's still part of the design, but we just kind of scooch it over a little bit. And there we go. So now we still have our 3 crosses, but we just moved that one a little bit over so that we didn't lose it on the design. Love it. Okay, so we are back to this one, which is still drying. Again, we're not going to touch it. I'm going to hit it with the heat gun one more time. And then I think because we've got chunky down here, we may have to sand it a little bit to get in the bottom, but we're almost to the point where we can put everything together. Actually, I'm going to plug in my glue gun while I'm drying that so this can get hot, because next up, we're going to need to start putting everything together. So we'll turn that on and then go ahead and keep drying. Now that's still going to need to dry overnight. It's not going to be, it's going to take a couple hours to be as dry as we need it. However, since it's a little bit chunky here at the bottom and we need to slide this into our base, we're going to need to sand a little bit off of the bottom to get it to go in the base. So I'm just going to do a little bit. Ooh, be careful. I touched that. Went back down. We're good. Just to see how much we need to get it in there. So I'm just going to try at one end, and then I can kind of see I've got that whole little bit there that needs to come off. So again, if yours is wet, be careful so that you don't touch any of the parts that are still drying, because we don't want that to happen. We don't want to ruin it. All right, we have got it in there. So we're going to do, I got to figure out where I want this one. I think I decided in the center-ish. So we're just going to go ahead and stand it right in the center. And then it is going to have a little bit of weight on it because we did all the glue and everything. So once we put the other pieces in here, then we can, it's going to go ahead and stand on. It shouldn't have any issues of going backwards or anything. We just need to add more weight. All right, so I'm going to put the second one kind of in this spot, and then I'm going to go in and put the third one in, I think right here in the front. Now, the next thing that we are ready to do is to go ahead and put our floral in there. So we have our 3 floral picks. And the way that I am going to do these, I'll kind of try and do it this way so that you can kind of see. I'm going to go in on the side here, and I'm going to have to trim these down, but I'm going to have one going in this way, and then I'm going to have this one on top of it. So I've kind of got the baby's breath here near the front, and then this other one is going to go in here on the side to kind of balance it out. But I do need to cut all of these shorter. So let's do that next. We'll need our wire cutter. Now I do want to make sure that I leave myself enough that I can glue, because I don't know where that went, because I will need to glue these down. And then you could also make it so that, here, let's take this, well, we need that in there. Let's take this guy out so that you can put one of the leaves behind it and the rest of the bundle in front of it. That almost just pinched it down by doing it that way. And then I also want to cut this shorter. I'm really nervous about cutting it too short, but it's all good, right? All right, and we're going to work this one in to our elephant ear. What's the elephant ear? Lamb's ear. Lamb's ear. I'm just making up animals at this point. All right, we're going to tuck that in there. And then this one is going to come in from the other side. We just need to cut it shorter as well. That might be the funnest part. And then we're going to tuck that one in that one. Now, I am going to go ahead and glue everything down, but I'm going to go ahead and show you. Let me move this camera down a little bit so that you can see the full finished product, or full finish. So again, initially I was going to glue these down, but I feel like you could just leave them like this, and it's going to allow you to, if you want to move them around, if you want to put them in different spots, and all of the, there we go, I had them done, all of the different ways. But that is just one idea. I feel like this, what's covering? Oh, this one is covering here. Make sure you know you can turn these and kind of manipulate them the way that you want. It's hard for me to you can turn them and mess with them the way you want. I'm like looking at you but looking at this, but I would actually probably just set these in here and not glue them, because you can use this stand for pretty much any of our cutouts because it's the same size, and that way you could just come in and move these around however you want. So if you want to glue them, you could go ahead and hot glue them in, but for me, I think I would just tuck them in there so that I could able to rearrange it however I want, depending on the season, and mix other different pieces in there. But that's how easy it is to make our standing cross sign. Again, I want to thank you for being a member of the Crafting in Christ Club, and I can't wait to see how you do your standing cross sign. Make sure to share in the group. And if you do share on social media, make sure to tag at Christian Craft Paper so that we can see it. And that's it for today's tutorial. Until next time, happy crafting!